Thank you everyone for coming along today. My name is Rowan Morris. I'm the New South Wales ACT Node Research Manager. Just like you to know that we're recording this briefing and it will be put on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. Now, today's EOI is about predicting prescribed burn and low intensity forest fire behaviour. And I'd like to start by an acknowledgement of country, and that is I would like to acknowledge that we're meeting across a range of different Aboriginal lands today. I'd like to pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. And I'd also like to recognise that these lands and waters have always been places of teaching, research and learning, and acknowledge the beautiful artwork that we have on our slide today that was done by Leanne Brooke. This briefing will provide more of a detailed description of the project and the opportunity for the interested parties, yourselves, to pose specific questions to assist with developing a submission for our current expression of interest on predicting prescribed burn and low intensity forest fire behaviour. The answers to the questions asked here will be transcribed and shared on the project page under frequently asked questions for this EOI. Ask questions at any time via the chat or by raising your hand. This will be an easy flowing format. It's not too formal. Chat is open, use it as much as you like. Comments, questions, etc. are welcomed any time. We should have time at the end also for a verbal question and answer. Most important thing about today is that you, the researcher, get to ask questions and clarify aspects of the call for EOI. You'll get a good understanding of what we have in mind for the project and the EOI process so that you're in a good position to put in a solid EOI submission. We appreciate the time and effort that goes into responses to calls for this EOI, and this is your chance to get the information that you need from us to do a great application. So we will cover what is NHRA, who AFAC are, project backgrounds, outputs, the governance, the EOI, and the question time. Now, I'd like to introduce the NRH team. So it's myself, Rowena, then Varna's behind the scenes making it all happen today. We've got David Field, who will be presenting a little bit more about the information and the background on the project, and he's from Predictive Services with the New South Wales Rural Fire Service. And I encourage you guys to put yourself into the chat, introduce yourself and say who you are and where you're from, and particularly what country you're from. I'm on Dharawal country today in beautiful down in the Wollongong area. Bit of background on Natural Hazards Research Australia. We stand on the shoulders of the former Bushfire CRC and the Bushfire Natural Hazards CRC. This version, the centre, commenced on the 1st of July 2021. We have a budget of 85 million over 10 years given to us from the Commonwealth Government. Plus, we also have partner contributions. And this is where the money for this project is coming from, is from the 85 million over 10 years. The core objective of our centre is to protect human life and minimise harm and suffering, contribute to developing and supporting well-prepared, resilient communities, and invest in research that translates into action. Now, I'm going to throw over to Dave. He's going to give you the project background and the information you need for the detail of your EOI submission. Thanks, Dave.
So in terms of, I guess, providing some background to the project, I think probably for me, the easiest way to start that description is probably with the sort of problem statement, I suppose. And so for this expression of interest, the problem statement is basically in Australia, we're quite lucky with fire spread models for eucalypt forest, and there's quite a few skillful ones out there. But each model has essentially a specific range of conditions where it really performs at its best. Unfortunately, firefighters in the field and prescribed burn incident controllers often don't have time, capacity, or perhaps even the expertise to apply the specific model to the specific situation that they're in. And they basically really need a one-size-all kind of one-size-fits-all approach. And that would be, I guess, a model that can predict the full range of fire behaviour from conditions which are suitable from prescribed burning and low intensity fire behaviour, all the way up to sort of high intensity full fuel strata or crowning fires, to help them, I guess, appraise the fire and support their kind of incident management decisions. And whilst that use is there out in the field, there's also a similar use in modern systems like AFDRS and CSIRO Spark, which is the kind of simulator that is of use around Australia. And they will really work best if they have like a single model for eucalypt forests that can kind of resolve the full range of conditions. at the moment there isn't really the facility in those models to swap between different models, in their range of conditions. And so yeah, they also really need a model that's suitable for all conditions, if you like. So this project intends to produce a eucalypt forest fire spread model that's able to predict the full range of fire behaviour conditions, and kind of getting into a little bit more of the specifics of what that might look like. We're hoping that the project would do a historic review of contemporary observations of forest fire behaviour, and look to kind of quantify the relationships between weather metrics, so things like air temperature, relative humidity, 10-metre open wind speeds, and relevant fuel parameters that are used by the industry to hopefully describe the point at which, under these conditions, the linear flaming front of a forest fire ceases to spread as an initialized head fire, and perhaps commences spreading as like a non-wind-driven fire. The point at which a linear flaming front becomes virtually stationary, and perhaps also the behaviour of the fire of the linear flaming front under all the conditions that I've described above, basically. Yeah, and so I guess in terms of this model, we would need the outputs of the model to be able to be adjusted for slope and wind direction as well. And a number of supporting organisations, including the RFS, have indicated that as part of this project, we may be able to provide some in-kind support to the project in the form of like our staff to support experiments if required. But in terms of constraints for the project, the project will obviously only be able to leverage existing information about like fire behaviour or what is collected as part of those in-kind experiments. And it's obviously going to need support from those agencies to get access to that data. And so, yeah, that's some of the constraints associated with the project. So in terms of, I guess, core outputs, and these are at a high level. So the core outputs for the project is a co-designed project. So co-designed with a project team that's from the industry. A key core output is going to be a report that reviews and describes the range of prescribed burn and low intensity, the existing prediction tools that are out there, a review of the available sort of data about those kinds of conditions in Australia, and that can also be done in assistance with the predictive services group. And continuing those core outputs, we're looking to have obviously a project plan, empirical fire spread model derived, which is obviously the kind of main sort of project output that we're looking for.
Cameras off.
And also looking to have sort of liaison with AFAC to ensure that whatever model is developed can be able to be implemented in things like Spark. And so that also translates into a situation where we're looking for, I guess, working with the industry to get the model coded up for things like Spark and potentially AFDRS as well. And finally, as you might expect from any project of this size, we're looking for kind of regular engagement with us, the technical working group. And so there'll be members of AFAC, predominantly from the predictive services group, if you're familiar with that. That's a sub-working group of the AFAC. And we'll be looking for a final report, presentations, and 2 peer-reviewed academic publications in international journals. And in terms of other project outputs that we'd like, quarterly progress reports, a project utilisation plan, project evaluation reports, and relevant communications of the outputs, including presentations and perhaps a hazard note. Yep, and we'd also welcome any other outputs that you're able to provide. So I kind of foreshadowed this before in terms of what we're kind of hoping to achieve. But I guess, yeah, the sort of main anticipated outcome of this project would be looking to develop essentially a model that's able to accurately predict the full range of a eucalypt forest fire's behaviour, from it essentially being virtually stationary to fully spreading or kind of extreme crown fire. And as I kind of foreshadowed at the moment, there isn't really a tool that can span that whole range with a high degree of skill. There are some really skillful tools that have skill in some parts of that range, and so we're really looking to try and put together a tool that, you know, can really help people who are out in the field or people who are doing planning for conducting prescribed burns to really assess the whole range of conditions really well. And that, you know, that sort of flows on into the safety of those individuals and the safety of prescribed burning and things like that as well. And yes, we're really keen to take a collaborative approach. And so that's sort of foreshadowed in there with the idea that we could provide some in-kind support and, you know, obviously provide our whatever data we have available to the project, but also potentially look to be collaborating on experiments with the sort of chosen research organisation as well. I think that's.
You've done it, Dave. No, thank you very
I've done it.
much. If people have questions, please put them in the chat, or we'll also have a moment for chatting at the end, talking with question and answers. But I'll take over now and talk about the budget. Obviously, that's an important part for those people who want to apply. The total budget is between 750,000 to 1 million, quite a substantial amount, but it's a pretty big project. We're looking at a 3-year time frame. We do need you to download the budget template from the EOI page. For the governance of the project, the way we work behind with NHRA, we prefer to have one lead provider for the contracting purposes. We will have a research services contract that goes with it. The contract is with Natural Hazard Research Australia. There'll be a project management committee, of which Dave will be on, and various other people to help the project along and give you the co-design and the advice you need as you're working throughout the 3 years. There's probably going to be a steering committee for this project, and that being the PSG group. They'd like regular updates and advice as to how the project's going. So we're very big on the collaboration and having frequent meetings. Reporting, there will be a project plan that you write up. If you are successful with the EOI, you then develop a research plan with the project management committee. There's milestone delivery, and we do have a report each quarter that's linked with the milestones. We evaluate the project at the end, and we love presentations. There's an NHRA forum each year, as well as other opportunities such as webinars with NHRA to present your findings. So with the EOI process, I assume you've all been able to get onto the website. If you have any questions from NHRA, you need to send it to the research@naturalhazards.com.au. We make sure that everybody's able to access the questions and answers. The submission of the EOI, it needs to be by 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Friday, the 1st of November. Apologies for changing the time of the meeting today, but do you realise we've got 5 different time frames around Australia at the moment? Really depends where you live at the moment as to what time of the day it is in our beautiful country. This is the website that you've hopefully seen on predicting prescribed burn and low intensity fires. Everything you need to provide a submission is on this project web page. So you've got the download the expression of interest, the submission form, the budget template, and download the proposed form of contract. We need to hear back from you if you need to change anything on the research services contract. Forms part of our assessment process. So making a submission, please use the EOI submission form. On there, there's various categories, but we'd like you to give us a statement of capability, a statement about the diversity of the project team. Yes, there's word limits throughout. Please stick to them. A statement about the project inclusion and respect of First Nations people, an outline describing how the project team intends to approach the project, an indicative schedule of the work and the milestone project outputs, a proposed project budget. So definitely download the budget form. For those who have done previous EOIs, the budget form's a little bit different. This time around, we actually specify the Excel spreadsheet that we'd like you to fill in. So you must use our budget template, and you must specify any changes required on the proposed contract form. We need a clear statement describing your outcomes, a clear statement describing what outputs you'll deliver, a statement demonstrating the project team's relevance to the stakeholder engagement, a risk management statement. And again, we're drilling this one in. Please let us know if there's any changes to the contract that we're proposing. And please do add 2-page CV for each member of the project team. We assess the EOI based on these 5 different capabilities. So when you're writing your plan, have these in mind. And there's a few key dates that are really important. Today's the 10th of October, for those who don't know. So we are here at the orange circles. but it is due on the 1st of November. I literally changed this slide just this morning. It was that we'd get back to you by December. I do hope that we do, but I've just pushed it out to January because we've all got the silly season coming up and fire season, and a lot of people might be a little bit busy around that time. So hopefully we'll get back to you by December, but it might be end of January. And that is our presentation. I hope you all stay on for our further question time, and we really thank our presenter, Dave Field, for his time. Please send your emails to research@naturalhazards.com.au if you do have further questions. And all your questions and frequently asked questions, along with the briefing, will be posted on our website. We do have a question. Can the project go above 3 years, taking into account that there might be dependence on field burn data that might not occur every year? So my answer to you on that is you need to prepare the EOI as it will be 3 years. There is a project management committee where you can do contract variations. If, for example, we get 3 years of rain, the project management committee will be very understanding of that situation. But, you know, we've only got a finite time for the bucket of money. So assume that you're going to get it done in 3 years and give your best shot at applying for it with that in mind.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please do, Joe.
Thanks. This has obviously been sponsored out of New South Wales, but with eucalypt forest covering all of Southern Australia, I assume the scope is the whole of Southern Australia?
Yes, we're a nationwide organisation. It's not just New South Wales. The Predictive Services Group have been working out the EOI, and they're from around the whole of Australia. So there's been quite a bit of focus from Victoria as well.
Yeah. So the expectation then would be that the outputs would be applicable to including southwestern WA, where I happen to be sitting.
Of course, yes.
And so then the team could potentially include the whole of Australia.
Correct. And Dave, would you like to add anything more?
Yeah, no, I just agree and reiterate that, yeah, we've got reps on that project board with from WA, Tasmania, and definitely Victoria are very interested. In fact, the original project proposal was theirs. We've just picked it up and run with it. So
thanks.
Here's one. What will be the key expectation from this project? Fuel distribution or climate variables, humidity and wind direction? Performing prescribed burning requires lots of approvals, and climatic conditions are important consideration. So this is from Sanjeev, and I'll throw this one over to you, Dave.
I think it's probably more about trying to derive some sort of fire spread model that can characterize the fire's behaviour, given a set of, I guess, weather and fuel variables, basically. So given the set of conditions, as we like to say quite broadly, but the set of weather conditions and fuel conditions, the model will resolve the predicted fire behaviour. That's the intent of the project.
Yep. So the reason why I asked this question, because when we hear about wildfires, one of the key challenge of firefighter is change in wind direction, and that changes everything. But when you go for low intensity prescribed burning, then definitely you have to go through a lot of approval process, and sometimes prescribed burning is cancelled because of weather condition.
So I think where I can see this project helping with that is part of most prescribed burning processes is that the person who's responsible for planning the burn needs to assess what the intensity or what the burn's kind of going to look like. So often they have a prescription around trying to make sure that the burn is not too intense for environmental or control reasons. And this model would basically provide some of those outputs to help that person make that decision accurately, to say that, yes, given these weather conditions that we're expecting on the day and the fuel conditions that are on that site, this is what the fire is going to look like. And so it is within my tolerances for conducting this prescribed burn. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ro, Andrew's got his hand up there.
Hello.
Well, maybe you're looking at something else on your screen, Rena. No worries.
Yeah, no, don't have everyone up on my screen. I'll change my view so I get you all. We'll get a gallery. That's better.
Sure thing.
Sorry for your wait, Andrew.
I guess it's just a bit more expansion on the idea of where the data comes from. So you mentioned that there's historical data. Obviously, there's published literature of under these conditions is what happens. You've got models that have been developed from that data for specific operating conditions, environmental conditions. And I guess is the idea that there's gaps in all of that. It's more that there's gaps between it. There's specific conditions which haven't necessarily been investigated previously. And so we need to potentially gather some data on those conditions. And then it's then a question of incorporating all of that into a super model that can cope with, here's the input, give me an answer, please.
So Andrew, I'll draw your attention to the title, Predicting Prescribed Burn and Low Intensity
Yeah.
Forest Fire Behaviour, but I'll throw it over to Dave to give you the more complicated answer.
I think you summarised it relatively well. I think to probably speak to some kind of answer that could help is like the agencies probably have a range of data about the progression of fires under certain conditions. It's probably not terribly well constrained because we'd probably be relying on information about the weather forecast or weather observations that weren't exactly at that position that the fire is actually making that progression. But certainly I know from the RFS's perspective, and I'd imagine from certainly Victoria's perspective and some of the other jurisdictions' perspective as well, there would be quite a range of infrared line scanning imagery available of like nocturnal spread and things like that, and so that data is there to potentially be capitalised on as part of this. But we also wanted to, I guess, open the idea that the researcher could propose working at least with ourselves in New South Wales, but I'd imagine once we sort of start that collaboration, that there'd be other states who'd be keen to collaborate as well, and we could support experimentation potentially within prescribed burns. So like we could conduct prescribed burns in such a way that they're well constrained and would allow experimental data to be captured as well. So you'd have like sort of some existing wildfire experimental data, you'd have some operational data that exists that could be capitalized on with the caveats of around how well it's constrained, and then the final thing, which would be kind of experiments themselves, which hopefully we can constrain really well and you can get really good data.
All right, thank you.
One of the things about the EOI process is that you can sort of, I'm sitting in WA and I don't have all the coding and the fire behavior skill set at my uni, but the EOI does allow for sort of saying, hey, I'd like to join a team. But just to, the sort of blunt answer is, do you prefer to try to formulate teams ahead of time, or is it something that happens in the post EOI process? What's the preferred pathway?
We prefer in advance. And this is partly why we've got the EOI. So this is a chance for you all to talk amongst yourselves and say, hey, I can do this bit, I can do that bit, let's team up. But yeah, look, if we end up getting applications from 3 different parties who can only do sections of it, we will work that way. It just gets quite messy from a contracting point of view and also delivery of the outcomes at the end. So ideally, you get to all know who's the player in this space and how you could make a consortium that could address the questions that we're asking.
Yeah, there's
but please put an application in even if you can't do it all, because we might match you up if that's the case, and we'd rather have someone actually deliver on the project than not, if that means we've got to create the teams.
Yep, great, thanks.
No,
just a suggestion, if people are comfortable to put your email addresses in the chat if you are hoping to form a consortium, just because after this meeting we're not able for probity and procurement policy reasons to share and help you guys link up teams. So yeah, if you're comfortable doing that, if you'd like to stay in touch, feel free to use the chat to do that.
All right, we'll give you a bit of time to write your names down, but I think that's the end of the session. So I'd like to thank you all for coming along and the time you put in. We really look forward to receiving your applications. It's a great topic and worthy of some really great research. So thank you.